this video, we will talk about using different degrees of autonomy in your tasks to make them more engaging and motivating for your pupils. This video continues on a teacher guide about different characteristics for telecollaborative tasks to boost learner engagement and motivation, and explains the full potential of task autonomy even further. Mind you, we will be giving examples of tasks to illustrate the different degrees of autonomy, but these are universal and standard examples. It is important to always look at your own context and your own learners. Look at the familiarity of your students with task autonomy and their capability to act autonomously. If they've never had a task in which they get to choose something, you may want to guide them and introduce task autonomy gradually into their classes. As said before, task autonomy is one of the activating layers we discussed in our teacher guide about different characteristics you can incorporate in your telecollaborative tasks that can help boost learner engagement. Task autonomy is defined like the degree of freedom students are given with regard to being able to shape and design the task they are asked to carry out. You can vary autonomy on 4 different levels, as shown on the slide. Firstly, you can give the students a task that is fixed and in which they have no choice. Secondly, you can give them a task in which they have some kind of choice. Thirdly, you can give the students a task and then let them negotiate about it among themselves or with you, and let them come up with an alternative after the discussion. And lastly, you can let the students themselves design a task, which we recommend for an advanced level only. Of course, there are other factors as well playing a role for this decision, like the capability of pupils to act autonomously. In the next part of this guide, we are going to pick one task and vary the degrees of task autonomy in the task to illustrate how you can use task autonomy to make a task more engaging and motivating for your learners. The general task we will discuss is a synchronous video communication exchange in Big Blue Button. The learners are divided into small groups and work together with groups of your partner teacher. The groups get a painting from you, the teacher, and they have to describe it to the other group, who then have to draw the work of art based on their given description. Although this task may not seem authentic, since describing a painting to someone who has to draw it is not something students may encounter in daily life, it is a good exercise to practice giving all sorts of descriptions, and being able to do that is something that always comes in handy when learning a language and communicating with one another. After the learners have described their paintings to the fullest and the artists on the other side are ready, they can show their drawings to the other group, since they are using the video communication option in Big Blue Button. What's interesting about this task is the ability to differentiate. You can let the students prepare their description, or you can give them the painting during the exchange itself, depending on the level. You can let them describe the painting in a synchronous video communication exchange in Big Blue Button, but if the pupils are nervous, however, you can always choose to let them record a video of themselves describing the painting, or even writing the description. For these 2 options, you can use Padlet. Coming back to the different degrees of autonomy then. When executing the task as described earlier, you are giving the learners a fixed task. You designed the entire task yourself and they simply have to execute it, without really having any choice. You can also adapt this task to make it a task with some degrees of freedom. You can let the learners choose their own painting, for example, so that they know the description they will be giving will be within their competences. Or you can let them choose the means of describing the picture, so for example an oral description or a written description. You can also make the general task a negotiated task by presenting your task ID to the students and giving them some time to discuss it within their class group and come up with their own ideas. Do they want to describe something other than a painting? A statue or a building, for example? Do they prefer writing the description, recording it, or giving it live via Big Blue Button? Do they prefer anything other than drawing the picture, using an online program for example? It's up to them to decide and to present their task idea to you. What is interesting about a negotiated task is that it gets learners talking without them even realizing. They are discussing where they want to go with their task idea, of course in the language you are teaching, but they aren't realizing it because they are focusing on making the task as interesting as possible for themselves. This kind of task, the negotiated task, is therefore something we definitely advise you to try out. The last form of task autonomy is to let the students design the task all by themselves. As said before, this is for advanced level only, for those who are already familiar with task autonomy and that are always willing to challenge themselves. After you've done a theme about art in class, for example, which may be something that is addressed in content integrated language learning, in short CLIL, you can let the students design the final task of this chapter all by themselves in groups. They then present their task ID to you, and you may choose the task ID of the group that you like best, or you can let each group execute their own task ID after your approval and possible minor changes to their ideas, of course. This was our guide on varying task autonomy to create more engaging and motivating tasks. We hope that you found this guide to be inspiring. Want to know more about TeCoLa, telecollaboration or gamification? Take a look at the TeCoLa website and the resources on this website. There you can find more interesting teacher guides, engaging task examples, as well as case studies, teacher voices and the TeCoLa tools. Good luck!